Hey, we're live. Well, I'm kind of alive. Anyway, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM players, and I'm just gonna put it out there. I just got the second booster shot yesterday, so I'm a little sluggish. Got a little
You
little
mean
headache, but I'm here to play.
you are actually pretty sluggish? You know what you just said? I just got the second booster shot.
Oh, I got the first booster shot,
The first and only
the third
booster
shot.
shot.
Yeah,
You got your fourth
you
shot
know,
yesterday. Said I'm just sort of
I'm
I'm just sort of taking shots.
yeah. That's all. It's all about the shots for me. Anyway, it's kind of a gloomy Thursday here in Atlanta, but it's not gloomy for a lot of the Braves fans because
Yeah,
they won. First
yeah,
time since 1995.
that's right. I was so happy for the Braves, and I was just happy that the Astros lost. But the problem was if it was the Dodgers and the Astros, not my favorite combination because I really wouldn't want to root for either team. But the Braves were easy to root for.
Does this lack of rooting for the Dodgers go back to their days in Brooklyn?
Yes.
I
My
thought so.
father felt the Dodgers abandoned New York and he dropped them and became a Yankees fan, actually.
Oh, wait a minute. So he was originally a Dodgers fan?
Oh yeah, most of my the generation that brought us all into the world were in my family were Dodgers fans. We didn't have very many Yankees
Oh.
fans, and we had I think my uncle Leon might have been the no, actually he was a Dodgers fan too. So no one. We didn't have any Giants fans, no New York Giants fans. We had no Yankees fans. They were all Dodgers fans. But once that was gone, then most of them became Yankees fans. They didn't get indifferent to baseball. They just became Yankees fans.
So wait a minute. Does that mean that you originally started off life as a Dodgers fan?
No, no. The kids were different. The kids were totally different. Me, my brother, and my cousin Edward, who lived two houses from us, we were all diehard Yankees fans from the beginning. It's Mickey Mantle, for God's sake, right? I mean, it's like, who's not a Yankees fan? We didn't, like everything else, we didn't understand our parents.
so so you were never anything but a Yankees fan. That's
Correct. Absolutely
uh,
correct. Never will be, never was.
okay. Well, I'm glad we got that. I was starting to get a little nervous there when you said your parents started out,
No,
you know,
nothing to be
Brooklyn
nervous
Dodgers
about.
fans.
They had a lot of influence on me, but not there.
I was going to say you might have to change your company name to like the 42 group or
I'd have
something
to
like
change the
that.
50. No, no. If I was going to be a Dodgers fan, I'd have to change it to the 55 group.
All right,
That
who's
was
I
the
don't
that
know.
was that was literally the year the Dodgers finally won the
Oh,
World
they
Series
beat them.
against the
Yeah.
Yankees. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah,
So it'd be
okay.
the
The
55 group. I wouldn't
55.
have to change it all that much. I just have to back it
Nah,
up a
just a little,
year.
just one off, you know.
That's right. I just had to back it up a little.
Greetings,
Hey,
Sven.
Sven. Yeah, now the show does
Good to see you.
begin.
Good to see you. All right, and let's see. The the bypasses the rest of the globe. This bypasses the rest of. What does that mean?
I'm not sure. Oh,
Stuart, you're gonna
because
have to
it's
let us
baseball.
know.
Because we're talking baseball, and Stuart
Oh,
perhaps might be in another part of the globe, like in Europe somewhere or wherever.
oh,
Maybe. What?
well,
Either
that's
way,
cool.
he's absolutely correct. It does bypass the rest of the globe. But
Yeah.
when
Well, we
Stuart,
don't
to be
really.
on, right, exactly. Well, Stuart, I mean, as much as we love our global brothers and sisters, if they don't get what we're talking about, we're fine with that.
Yeah, we can live with that. We're okay. Oh, here he goes. He got a. Does anyone want to? No, Stuart. You might want to check for another CRM
But
based show that might talk about that.
I do not think. No, we'll talk about
Round
it from
ball
the.
football. That's a. I like how he put that. Round ball football.
Actually, that's a good way to describe it. Thank you, Stuart. Appreciate it.
Hopefully, Mia.
We're
There it
there
is.
with you. We're there with you. And when we're in Europe, when we're in the EMEA, any place in the EMEA, we still will talk baseball
Yeah, and football
and
that's not
football.
round.
Right? Weirdly shaped, Zeppelin shaped football, and of course, uh, basketball,
basketball, though.
aka
Yeah, that's right.
rounders. We'll talk
Yeah, right.
rounders.
Is that what they call basketball?
No,
Rounders?
they call it something, man. I might be actually. Hey, Stuart, is there some sort of isn't there a European sport they call rounders? It's like a nickname for one of the ones you mentioned. Is that what is
I
that?
thought that was like one of the original names of
Names
baseball,
for
rounders.
it could be. I don't remember. It just sounded appropriate for the moment.
Well, we do have some guests coming up a little later. Actually, we're going to talk to our buddies over at SugarCRM. They had their Analyst Summit earlier this week. It's always good catching up to them. I always like talking with the
So you know what we're going to do? We'll ask all the questions of the things that were under NDA. So they say, we can't talk about that. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about that. We can't talk about that.
It's like just no comment.
No comment.
Next
right.
question.
Exactly. Be a stirring conversation.
Yes.
It
Oh,
is
so
baseball.
Rounders
You're
is
right.
baseball.
Okay,
I thought
Rounders
that's
was
what
baseball.
it was.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for the internet.
Thank you for the internet.
Yeah, well, he was reading. I'm sure he looked it up. He is in the EMEA, right? So not like he was.
Well, that's true.
Unless he happens to be a fan of baseball, which is possible.
Why not? Let's see. All right. So, but before we get to our guests, we'll be coming on in a couple of minutes. I was reflecting on earlier this week. We did the Four Horsemen reunion, Four Horsemen of the CRM Apocalypse reunion, and I had forgotten who named us.
Who named us the Four Horsemen?
Yeah.
Who?
You? Oh, it's all. I got it on. I got it on video. But if there's anybody, yeah, because we actually talked about it on the show.
The original.
You want to take a guess? Yeah. Who named us that?
Well, the one who was being speculated on was Ginger Conlon.
Yeah, but that's good enough for me. I mean, I don't know who it was.
I honestly don't remember.
That must be Bob telling us to be nice.
Bob. To who?
We didn't do it. We didn't say anything.
Who
wrong.
we not being
look
nice
who it
to?
is. Brian Slummer.
Whoa.
He's got his face mask on. Wow.
He's literally
on hand. Why's your face mask on your hand, Brian? Yeah, could help myself.
Does that mean you're going to have a glove on your face?
You know who needs to have a face mask? Aaron Rodgers needs a face mask, but we're not getting into we're not getting into sports too deeply. But yeah, so Ginger, I think you're the one that said it. You thought it was Ginger.
No, I think Esteban actually said that.
No, you know who it? No, it was Dennis.
Dennis. It was. Well, there we go. We got everybody wrong completely.
I knew I didn't say it. That's why
I didn't say it. I don't remember saying it either. So Dennis said it, but I think Ginger because she was the original. She was the one who came before Esteban. The other three of us were in the original Four Horsemen.
So it's like the Four Stooges kind of thing. They're before the classic lineup.
Oh, that makes Esteban Shemp.
No, that makes Ginger Shemp because Shemp was one of the originals. Yeah, it was Mo, Larry, and Shemp.
Oh, right. Sorry, it was Larry was replaced by what was that guy? Curly was replaced by Curly Joe.
Oh, Curly, yeah. No, but the original lineup, and I know this is really spiraling way out of control, but
I have a funny feeling that Stuart's not going to last through this part of the show.
Yeah, right. Stuart's going to be like, what are they talking about now?
Hey, Stuart, do us a favor. Please stick with us. I really would appreciate it because it will be a very good discussion with Craig and
Jason.
Well, actually, no, I was about to say, but then I realized I was giving away too much to begin with. So now you gave away the second.
Don't say any. Well,
no
we
more.
just gave out We just gave out first names. It could be like Jason Smith, Craig Johnson. I don't know. But anyway, let's get this Three Stooges apocalypse. I actually like that. The Three Stooges apocalypse. All right. So the original Stooges. Remember, there was Ted Healy. Put the original Stooges together. Mo, Larry, Shemp.
Wow.
Shemp had a dispute with Ted Healy because he didn't think he was, getting, the credit he deserved. So he got another opportunity. He took off. and they needed a third stooge. And what did they do? They went to their little brother. Their little brother was Curly.
Curly. And then Curly left for whatever reason. And then Curly Joe, who looked like a mini version of Curly, came in.
No, Curly died.
Oh, he died? Is that what happened?
Yeah, he had like a heart attack at 48 or something like that.
Oh, my.
He was really young. And then Shemp died like not too long after. All right, we got to stop.
I think we're done.
We could do a whole show on this.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thank you and good night. No, we're not going to do that. All right. You were going to mention something about, before we bring on our guest, you were going to mention something about some of the things that we just saw. Like I just shot you this link to a video that SAP put together.
Yeah. I mean, it was a video. It looked like it was promoting a partner particularly, but a CX partner leader.
Joe Besser.
Yeah, Joe Besser. You're right.
Rich Green coming through with Joe Besser.
Okay. Sugar comes through. Right. So here's the thing. So the video he shot me was this sort of it was like a graphics novel version with the kapow stuff type thing.
It's like a comic book
superhero thing for a SAP partner with a sort of sluggish voiceover built around it. It was, well, it had one guy doing like 2 different voices and it didn't quite work. But yeah, and it was look, I'll put it this way. On the one hand, it was kind of cute and was a good first attempt at something. Yeah. And on the other hand,
it was different. It was different.
It's very lame on the other hand. So now, then
but it's different.
You flip over and you look at Salesforce Plus, which of course is their network. And we've watched some of the shows, Salesforce Industries and some other things. And again, the idea, what Salesforce is doing and what SAP is trying to do there are both really good attempts at changing content delivery in particular, content creation and delivery, really. Both of them, let's say this I don't want to denigrate them because they actually deserve praise for what they're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Both of them do.
Yep.
But both of them, let's say, are very early stage in terms
of that.
Stages.
Yep.
Yeah. And with Salesforce, for example, we watch Salesforce Industries, watch some of the other shows. And there's still kind of traditional approaches to tech shows, but they're being broadcast as shows, meaning episodes, ongoing, consistent principles in the show, news reporter, anchors. I mean, they're doing things the way you would look at a classic broadcast. With regulars. But the content needs some work yet. I think it's a good start though. For them, and it's also a good start for SAP to try something new, which is reflective of what that says that both the companies are beginning to treat the transition of power going on right now seriously and are starting to align with doing the right things. And as far as framework and institutionalization, they're doing the right things. As far as the content itself, that's what needs to work yet, I would say.
Yeah, they're experimenting, and I really tip my hat to them.
Me too,
because I think it's really cool to see them doing that. And maybe what would have helped would have been they should have mixed in a little Three Stooges talk. If you could mix in Three Stooges to your thought leadership.
Wow,
that's a pretty good combination right there.
If you can literally pull that one off, you're not going to tip in my head. I will literally buy every product you ever produce, even if it's for the enterprise, for my house. If you can somehow manage to put Three Stooges and thought leadership in the same breath,
I think it can be done. Maybe that's something we need to work on. We can guide them. We can help them with this
advisory.
We can get Esteban in on this.
Oh my God, yeah. He'd go for it though. He'd absolutely go for it. So I honestly think that this is really a good sign for transition. And I think other companies are starting to look at it. I don't think other companies have executed that well with it at all really yet. Not that they're not trying. I mean, you're looking at companies like, I know Microsoft is starting to look at this sort of content delivery and how they're looking at it. But, on the other hand, their cloud business is so wildly successful at the moment that I was reading Bob Evans' thing on it today that you're talking about that's where they're concentrated, that they are a cloud company, and right now number one cloud company, and as a result of that are the single highest valued company in the world. They beat out Apple this morning. So
well, they all just came out with their earnings estimates last week, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Microsoft did about don't quote me specifically, but about 20 billion in not revenue, or maybe it's revenue, but I thought it might have been actual profit. But over the last quarter,
probably is
they did,
profits.
yeah, and Apple, of course, they did that. I think Facebook did about 29 in revenue and about 10 in profit. So all these companies are killing it. They can do all sorts of experiments, and it's not going to hurt them, you know, because they got the money to burn to do. All right, we need to bring our guests in. Let's do that, because I see them in the green room.
Turning green on the discussions of Three Stooges.
They're wiping the crumbs off the cronuts that they had in the green room. So
that's right.
I think they're ready to go. So why don't we bring them out? And or do you want to do a little intro? Because you're great with the intros. And I think I've been throwing you off a little bit.
You want to go Larry Moe and Curly?
No. No, I think sometimes when I ask you to do the intro, I bring them on before you get really the intro out. So I want to give you the stage to do the intro, and then I'll bring them out.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. So I'm going to have slightly different intros for each of these guys, given they are two different people. But but
that's a good thing.
Well, here's the thing. So I'm going to start with actually Jason, right? Jason Rushforth. Okay. So I've known Jason right now is pretty much the guy running the sales show at Sugar. But here's the thing. I've known Jason probably back to Pivotal, which means I've known him almost as long as I've known the whole industry. And, Jason's been through companies that I've covered over the years, and Pivotal, and then Pivotal became Aptian, and Aptian, of course, then, but also Infor, which is, and both of us had a joint love of the product Epiphany at the time. I remember that both of us used to talk about its praises. And then when he was coming over to Sugar, we talked about that, So I've known this guy a long time, and this guy's like a rock star. I mean, wherever he goes, he succeeds always. And he's also,
in other words, all he does is win, basically.
Pretty much. Actually, if he was playing the Astros by himself in the series, he would have been 4-zip Jason. Right? Okay. That's literally it. I am not joking. The guy has historically been one of the guys who just, you can always count on him to succeed. And that's something to be honest, you rarely see in our industry. So so that's Jason. Now Craig Charlton is the CEO of Sugar, but I want to also tell you a story about this. So Craig actually doesn't come from the CRM industry at all. And he comes, I think it was fintech, if I remember correctly, originally. And he can correct me if I'm wrong. But I, of course, got wind of him coming to Sugar when Excel KKR acquired Sugar, and I'm pretty friendly with them. So they were talking to me about Craig, and they were very pumped about Craig coming. And me, because I'm concerned if you haven't been in the CRM industry, how's it going to go? I'm not sure. And I didn't know Craig at the time. So it was interesting. So two things happened. First, there was a meeting I had with Craig set up, and I was super impressed with the guy for two reasons. One is how quickly he seemed to grasp at least the relationships, the aspects of fintech and CRM that were similar to the same. And that's not easy to do because they're very different industries. And secondly, I liked his sense of humor. Right, I really did. I mean, I thought the guy was really funny, and and
I might have put that first, but that's
I totally.
I'm a sucker for a good sense of humor.
I'm actually being business polite here because I actually did like his sense of humor more. But you're supposed to always like the business.
Well, that's true. You got to lead with the business
sense of humor second, but I actually do like the sense of humor first. And then I've needless to say, watched him in his role as CEO carefully. I mean, again, I have a relationship with Sugar that goes back to started when they were 4 months old, right, as a company. So it's a long-standing relationship. Yeah, 2004, 4 months
that was
into
before
the existence of the company.
That was before Clint Orem was referred to as Sugar Clint, which that's
yes, it was.
From here on in, he'll be
back then. He was Clint. Just Clint, right? So right, that's how old this is, right? So and they had a thing on was it SourceForge called SugarForge.
Oh, right, the open source thing.
Yeah, that was a big. They had 30,000 developers. So I need to say I have this sort of affectionate relationship to the company. I'm always watching, and Craig's done a terrific job. And he's smart enough to bring in people like Jason and like Claire Dorian, who's CMO, and give Clint the room the guy needs to do what he has to do, because Clint's a rock star, and he's already got an ace product guy with Rich Green, who you saw comment briefly before. I mean, they're really in a good position, and Craig has been very successful in getting them there, and it's again doubly hard because he's coming from an industry that's not CRM, and CRM has a lot of somewhat insular things about it that you have to learn in order to succeed in it, and Craig has figured that out.
Could I just, before we bring it on, can I just say, I had a lot of respect for Rich Green, before this, but the fact that he knows Joe Besser and the Stooges, that just blows me away. All right, he's a smart guy, and he also knows about Three Stooges history and all that. So, all right. So now, with all that out of the way, let's introduce in order of the intro. There's JR. I think I called JR.
How are you?
How you doing, buddy?
Good, man.
Good. How's it going, guys?
Good.
Doing
good. To see you when you don't have to present.
Yeah.
Hey, Craig.
And there's Craig.
Hi, guys. Thanks for the intro. Thanks for the invite.
This is so much better than you guys presenting to 550 analysts. I mean, I will tell you, both of you did a great job. You really did.
Absolutely.
But I like this better anyway. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And the one thing you didn't mention about Craig is the accent. Love the accent. I love how he says he's from the South, but just further south than where I am, which is Atlanta, Georgia. So
I don't have an accent, Brent. You guys do.
That's it.
Okay, sure. Okay. So let me ask you this. I want to get both your takes on this, because we had the Analyst Summit, and some of it was under NDA, and if I sort of, or Brent sort of starts explaining our take on it, we might accidentally say something under NDA, so we're not going to.
It's happened before, so
once in particular, right? So that was, but it luckily turned out to be funny, right? So, but the thing is that, why don't you, from each of your perspectives, why don't you sort of give us a take on what you actually talked to us about at the Analyst Summit, because I think it's really important that those of the audience who can hear about it.
JR, why don't you go first?
Awesome. So the Analyst Summit was a whirlwind of an event. And by the way, Paul, thank you for the wonderful intro. I told my wife I was going on the show today. I'm just going to digress for 30 seconds. And she said to me last night over a glass of wine, she said, Jay, you're the Snoop Dogg of CRM. She goes, you're the OG. That's what she called me. It's kind of funny because I've been around for a while, right? Analyst Summit was an amazing event where we had the opportunity to share the vision of where Sugar's going, talk about our success that we're having, and we are. Since I've joined, we've seen record-breaking quarters. We're beating our competition more frequently. We know where we play in the marketplace. The big under NDA was my session. Basically, the whole session was under NDA, where we talked about the success of some of our biggest customers. And, when I think back to the past, guys, and Brent and Paul, you would remember, the mid-market was basically Pivotal, Onyx, and Saratoga maybe. And one of the biggest challenges that those companies had back in the day was scalability. That's where Siebel started to kind of kick them in the pants a little bit. When you got above 2,500 seat deployments, it became really complicated. And here at Sugar, as you know, we have some massive deployments that I had a chance to share with you. And then Rich Green and team got to talk to you about the future of where sugar is going from a roadmap perspective. And when I see the roadmap, and we're just talking about it today with Craig, Rich, and the executive staff, it gets me excited. In 2000 to 2011, a big part of my life was pivotal. And why I stayed so long is I loved the product, guys. I thought the product was fabulous at what it did, how we serviced the mid-market, the characteristics of that application. And then fast forward to 2020, I've fallen in love again. Like what Sugar's product does, how it functions, how we solve critical pain points for our customers is something that I'm absolutely in love with. And I think that the product direction and what we're doing around AI and the time-aware platform is giving us a competitive advantage in the marketplace.
You know, one historic aside, I guess, is Pivotal was the first company to actually do social CRM ever. And it was called Social CRM, right, yeah. Too.
I was intimately involved in that. I remember I took it on tour with the CTO, and we walked through and went into exhibit halls and talked about what we were doing with social CRM. It's funny how we named it social CRM, and then it kind of became a category, and then it disappeared from a category, and now it's an expectation of
well, we actually made it disappear. We did.
I gotta say though, he just said he went on tour with social CRM. He is the Snoop Dogg of CRM. You're doing that kind of stuff. That's very cool. All right, so
Craig?
Craig. Well, from my perspective, it was great to have, you know, so much time with so many of the different analysts, and I mean, their feedback was enormously helpful for us. But to be able to talk about the growth trajectory of Sugar, you know, when a bit like JR, I've fallen in love as well. But before I actually took the role, I didn't know much about Sugar, and I spent a lot of time, you know, acclimating myself with the product. And having used a number of different CRM applications over the years, and not being a particular fan of the ones I had used, you know, all of the hard stuff under Rich Green has been done. Yeah. And, you know, so the product's in fantastic shape, which enables us to go out and do some M&A, also enables us to really prioritize, you know, some of these big ticket items in terms of what we're doing next organically. And obviously a lot of which we got to share with you guys. But I just think that we're uniquely positioned to go and really, you know, kick some butt out in the marketplace. And, you know, our customers vote with their feet. You look at all of the customer choice awards, Sugar's always up there on the podium, typically in gold medal position. And the people we compete with most of the day are normally in the dungeon when it comes to you know, customer sentiment. So that whole loving our customers and our, you know, our mission, which is help our customers generate customers for life. And if we do that, then we also generate customers for life. And yeah, it's super exciting time to be at Sugar.
We just are coming out of, I hope we're coming out of, you know, the pandemic. Things seem to be beginning to open up. What are your customers telling you about where they are and what they need from you to come out of this and be positioned in a way that will give them the most opportunity to succeed?
Well, JR, you're more fortunate. You spend a lot more time with our customers than I get to. So why don't you take that one?
Thanks, Craig. So, you know, it's interesting. A lot of companies use the pandemic as an opportunity to double down on what they're doing from a CX or a CRM perspective. So there's a lot more going on in terms of refining their process because they're not on the road traveling. Like if you think about someone like me, I think my last year at CDC or Pivotal, was I did 382 flights that year. So you don't have a lot of time. Road warrior, right? And you don't have a lot of time to sit back and really think about your business, the process, how you're going to be better coming out of the pandemic. And a lot of our customers are using the opportunity to really double down in terms of how they go out and acquire their customers. So we're seeing a lot of projects come up. A lot of people use that opportunity to reevaluate what technology platforms. So we saw, you know, this shift in pipeline that's coming our way because people are saying, hey, this isn't really working. We didn't have the time to do this in the past. Let's use the pandemic as an opportunity to really refine our process, look at our technology, and really deliver on the value of what CRM can do for their customers.
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic, I think, was the trigger for many organizations to expedite their digital transformation. And, you know, for many that were laggards, they, you know, really were forced to either, you know, stump up or, you know, potentially go out of business. And so it's been a major driver. And I think companies should come out of this phase far stronger in most instances than you know, the way they went in. So that's, you know, something that we've seen again and again and again.
So, so here's the thing. So you've had this superb platform since version 7. Literally, version 7 was the turning point for you guys. And at that point, from then on, you're just making a great platform better. I've loved it from the day I saw it from 7. You're also, you know, you've got a 17-year history as a company, meaning you're known in the CRM universe, and you're known, you know, even beyond that to some extent. I mean, I know sometimes you'll underestimate yourselves, but one of the things I will tell you, whether you feel you're top of mind or not, when somebody says, who is SugarCRM? Nobody, let's say this. Well, let me rephrase that. If I say SugarCRM, nobody says, who is that? They all know who you are. You're not unknown. Not only you're not unknown, you're well known. Okay. That said, one of the things that also impresses me, and I'd really like to hear some elaboration on this, is you are, and unlike most companies who waffle about this, you are firmly committed to the mid-market. And most companies who are firmly committed to the mid-market are saying, actually, we're firmly committed to going upscale, 20 minutes from now. You guys, no, you're straight down the middle. You're mid-market. You're going to upper end, lower end, and to a point I know you've made before, Jason, you've mentioned there are very big operating difference between the lower and upper end, which is actually quite true. Talk more about why you stuck to the mid-market, and because I think for two reasons. One reason I think want to understand the strategy, but the second thing is it's a lesson for a lot of other companies to develop a strategy, focus on it, and work at it, as opposed to be so ambitious that you're planning the next phase before you've even got 1/10 of the way through this one, right? So please elaborate on why you have kept that strong focus and what that actually means organizationally.
So Paul, you know, we have had success, as you know, in the enterprise over the years. Yeah. But the challenge with the enterprise is they tend not to be very brave, and they tend to just go with the brand. And, you know, whoever the board have all heard of before them, we all know that there is a gorilla in the space. So it's not a lack of capability, because we have some of the biggest companies in the world. But ultimately, when you think about the mid-market, they effectively want pretty much everything that the enterprise wants, but they want it to work immediately. They want it to work out of the box. They don't have time for Frankensteinian science experiments, which take, you know, years to deliver any value. So, you know, we know that, you know, based on what we have from a technology perspective, the whole concept of letting the platform do the work, it's all about an application with super quick time to value, but with the same levels of complexity that don't require, you know, huge teams of external consultants or data scientists or whatever else in order to actually get some value out of the system. So we know we play exceptionally well in that space. And so, you know, we've sort of put the blinkers on and going after it and doubling down at every turn. That's been the strategy.
Jason, can you talk a little bit to the difference between upper and lower end too? Because I think that's also a distinction. You guys, again, and just to clarify, you guys do, this is me saying this as an analyst now, you guys do scale to the enterprise. You did it. The actual turning point of that was when IBM took you in, and I think pardon me if I'm wrong about the number, but it was something like 67,000 seats. It was just huge. Which was, to me, the value of that, aside from whatever financial value you guys got as a company, was it proved you're scaled, right? Yeah. To anything, right? So that's not what we're talking about. It's just the focus on the strategy around the mid-market. So Jason, with that said, can you also talk a little bit to the differences between how you look at the lower end and how you look at the upper end of the mid-market when you're addressing it?
So in the upper end of the mid-market, what I find is a bit more of a technology sophistication that comes with that buyer and that customer, a broader range of integration touch points that are required to their back office and other third-party data applications. The characteristic that I find most interesting is that when we're in the mid-market and the upper mid-market, these are companies that are pressing up to start going in to become the enterprise. And they're not following status quo. They want to be nimble. They need to be different than what that market leader is in their particular segment, and they need to do that by differentiating how they go to market. And when I say that, I'm talking about creating process and capabilities that allow them to play in a marketplace without necessarily competing head to head against their 800-pound gorilla. So we're seeing organizations that want to be nimble. They want flexibility at cost. The one thing that I used to always laugh about is Siebel Systems, and I can talk openly because they're now part of Oracle and kind of gone away. They used to say they could play in the mid-market, and when we get into deals with them, we'd say, hey, here's the ERD of Siebel Systems, and there's like 107,000 tables in this application. The time to customize it could be years upon many years and cost you millions of dollars. The characteristics of that, a big vendor, a mega vendor coming into the mid-market, or even a low vendor trying to come up into the mid-market, it doesn't work. And so we're looking at this saying, you need to be nimble. You need to have flexibility at a lower cost. You need to be able to pivot as your organization needs to pivot to address challenges in the marketplace. And we see that day in and day out.
And also with the mid-market, in order to compete, I mean, typically they're growing a lot faster than the enterprise. In order to compete, you have to be able to bake in what makes you unique, what gives you a competitive advantage into the application. You don't get a competitive advantage by using exactly the same system as everyone else. So, that's something we see with these nimble companies. They want to be the next unicorn. They want to be the next enterprise. And the way to do that is they've got to be super, super quick to move in all respects.
Well, hey, Brent, before you say something, let me.
Okay. Yeah.
I just want to say, this is to Brian. I can't believe that you don't say CRM at the Speed of Light was the best book in the CRM space. I am so insulted, Brian. And that's why you're wearing a face mask on your hand and a glove on your face.
Right? And unfortunately, Brian, that's probably why you'll never be on the show. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So you guys over the years, especially after the Excel KK, I got to be careful about the KK. It always makes me funny saying the K's. But anyway, once you were acquired or came together with Excel, you started doing a series of acquisitions. Has your acquisition strategy changed since the early days of the partnership? Do you see opportunities that maybe they weren't there over the last couple of years, but do you see or sense some opportunities to plug some gaps going back to the acquisition route?
Well, look, from an M&A perspective, I think we've done 8 acquisitions since I joined. So, and there's been a number of really needle-moving IP type acquisitions. The benefit of having Excel KKR behind us, and you guys know them very well, they've got very deep pockets, and there really is nothing that's off limits to us now because we've got the backing of this wonderful investor. I think we probably get 3 to 5 potential acquisitions come across our desk every single week. I mean, there is so much out there and up for grabs, but we have a really strict valuation metric around. We don't want to create a disparate collection of technologies that don't play well together, because we can't push the onus back on our customers to make that stuff work like some others do. So, we've got this really important criteria around it has to be something that is going to be consumable by our customers very, very quickly, because that's a number one demand of the mid-market. So it has to add value super quickly. And, it shouldn't be that ground up science experiment. So unfortunately, there's lots of things that we cross off the list, but I expect we'll have another acquisition and a really exciting one actually announced, hopefully within the next 3 weeks. Just depends on due diligence.
Hey,
so,
if you want to break some news now, feel free.
Good. Well, or conversely, if you just like to acquire CRM Playaz, we're pretty good. We become your media network.
Media arm, yeah. Well, there you
That's
go.
right.
Let's talk to Claire.
Yeah, that would be hysterical, actually. So all right. So, given actually I know the one that if I'm looking at all the acquisitions that you did make, I think the one that you kind of put out there the most, if I have to choose one, would be Node.ai, that one. I guess my question to you is why? Not why did you acquire them? Why would they seemingly I'd say the one that you publicized considerably the most?
Well, for me, I've always wanted a crystal ball in business. It's if I have any wish, it's like, give me a crystal ball, because with that, you can dominate the world. So, you look at the influence AI is having on so many different industries. And when we looked at what Node had, and I think I told you the long story, but we gave them 2 days and a whole raft of our data and said, tell us what's going to happen. The data was 6 months old. Their degree of accuracy in terms of their predictions just blew me away. I expected nothing like the sort of, high 80s, low 90s in terms of accuracy level.
Wow.
It was astounding. And they took a very, very different approach to AI. And talking to another analyst, not you guys, and I won't name the person, but he said, this is like real AI, not like that fanciful stuff that some of your competitors have. So, it was a big, bold acquisition. It was a company that was sort of, almost pre-revenue, but it had like a ton of money pumped into it. And, what we've been able to see in terms of Sugar Predict and the feedback we're getting from our customers and the number of points that we already have, like really compelling use cases. And once again, just surfaced in the standard product. You don't have to bring in a team of data scientists or, a consulting team. We just surface this automatically. And we're only scratching the surface. There's so much more that's coming. I think that makes JR's job really easy to get out there and actually sell it. But I always think that.
It does.
Hey, I want to get kind of broaden it and talk a little bit about the industry. From your perspective, what do you think the industry is still not getting right? What are something that it's like, why are we still dealing with this? Why isn't the industry as a whole really addressing this and making things better for all kinds of customers?
Key phrase there, as a whole, not your competitors.
Yeah. As a whole.
From my perspective, we did that survey last year of 2,000 global sales professionals using other products other than sugar. So, it wasn't fair to survey our own customers. But the feedback was from 52% of these 2,000 global sales professionals said their CRM was costing them lost revenue. Not that it wasn't helping them drive more revenue, it was actually costing them lost revenue. And that, to me, just has me completely scratching my head. 30 years, it's the biggest enterprise market in the world. It's flagged as the number one priority by pretty much every exec. And yet 50, that's the end result. So there's a lot that CRM is not getting right. And, from our perspective, I think a lot of the marketplace gets people to do what the technology should be doing. And that doesn't make any sense. Tech is meant to make your job easier. Tech is meant to take the effort away and provide you tons of benefit. But, the genesis of a lot of CRM systems was, from even back to the Siebel days, they were management tools to keep an eye on what people were doing in the business. And that's completely topsy-turvy with where it needs to be. So I think there's a huge amount that CRM that needs to change. And we're very happy being the agent of change in terms of the marketplace. Sorry, JR, I kept talking.
I'm going to drift off of what you just talked about, because You're absolutely correct. There's so many deployments of CRM, and when we think about CRM as a category where it's a management tool, we have the need to surface a pipeline. Therefore, you as this, and I'll talk SFA just because it's easiest. You as a sales rep must put this data in this capacity so we can generate a report so I can tell my CEO or tell my board what the future forecast looks like. No value. The only value is to the manager receiving that data and above that individual. And when I think about it, when I talk to my customers, we talk about if we're going to ask you to input data on the screen, what's the 3x value that a user is going to get out of using Sugar? And what that 3x value propagates itself in areas like Predict. And why Predict is so important is it allows you to really pinpoint the accuracy of all of the data elements that you're asked to capture anyways. But now as a seller, I can use that information to figure out where I want to go next in a particular opportunity. So we're giving something back to the end user beyond just the simple request of fill in this form around an opportunity, and then we'll surface it to a forecast. If that's the only reason we're doing it, and it seems to be a trend, but when you get into the mid-market, what you find is there's a lot of companies that are finding that value, finding that 3x value that you're getting from entering the data, and what does it do to help move the needle in terms of sales execution.
And where can we eliminate the need to enter the data? How can we consume, and ingest information from all of the other systems which an enterprise is using, so that you're not just entering duplicative data, which makes no sense.
I mean, it seems, from your standpoint, and I think this is admirable, that you're focused on making things convenient for people, basically, right? Make it, and convenience to me is more important than delight, as we've discussed many times on this show. It's not that delight's unimportant, just convenience is what people want, right? The delight is what they don't expect, right? But what they want is make it easy on me, make my job effective in a way that I can do it well. And that's what I want. Simple as that. And that's just a general human impulse. So, I want to sort of take it back into the company a little bit, because, you have one of the comments that popped up was from one of your partners. The person was Neil Saviano.
Hey, Neil.
I don't know Neil, but it's a partner. And that actually made me think about that. Because look, if I'm looking at Sugar history over the time, it's been sort of, and I'm not speaking to since you got there, I'm speaking prior to partnership. The partner program has always been kind of its ambiguous program. It's always been one that people wanted to be part of, but how Sugar kind of addressed the partners was like 1 year it was, okay, you can sell to the enterprise. We'll sell to the enterprise too, and mid-market. No, you can't sell to the enterprise. No, this is how much you get for revenue recognition. No, this is how much you get. And every year things would change. And it would, I talked to tons of partners who were very devoted to Sugar and would remain so, but had questions that would kind of driving them crazy. Now, what I've seen is over the last, since basically you came there, Craig, what's that, 2 years now?
2.5 years? Coming up to 3.
Jesus, God. Time's way too fast. I'm over 70, so we need to slow this thing up a bit. Okay, guys, slow it all up. Okay, I'm apparently very, according to Brent, I'm very venerable, right? So, it seems to have stabilized somewhat. So and it's mostly, I don't know much of the details at this point, but can you talk to how you think about partnerships and how you think about partners? Neil kind of triggered that with me. And thank you, Neil. Again, I don't know who you represent, but I know a lot of your partners, like, Provident and all these other guys, and good friends of mine, really. And I've spoken over the years, probably at a dozen Sugar partner events, actually. The thing is that, can you discuss so let's call it partner thinking, like how you actually think about the idea of partners, and secondly, how they fit into your ecosystem, and thirdly, what is what is it, to the extent you can talk about this, what is it that you actually provide for them and let them do? I guess. And when I say let them do, I'm exaggerating a little since they're going to do what they want. But but you get my what do you provide them? What do they have to do to be your partner? What markets do they target? How do you distinguish between your sales and their sales? I mean, as much, again, it doesn't have to be overly detailed, but as much as you can talk to your strategy and relationships and where they fit in the ecosystem and some of the details that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, look, I'm a partner guy. More than half of my life has been spent on the other side of the fence. It was only 2008 when I made the move to the vendors community. So, I think, from a partner perspective, our partners, and we're very blessed to have some amazing partners. You mentioned a couple there, Paul, but we also are transitioning as a business. Our partners play a really important role. But if you think back to the original open source days of Sugar, the partners who were really successful were the more engineering types, right? And they were essentially customizing snowflakes. We've moved beyond that when we, obviously jettisoned the open source heritage before I started, but we're far more of a solution focused company now. And so the sort of partners where the engineering led partners were very successful in the early days, they've been less successful of late. What we need organizations that are incredible sales machines, but we also need organizations that don't necessarily try and customize the application, but are focused on delivering customers for life. So they're absolutely focused on loving our customers and our collective customers. And we've got plenty of those. I can't talk too much to all the chopping and changing. I did hear that when I first took over and met with a number of the partners that we had chopped and changed in terms of some policies, etc. But, as an ex-partner, I think our partner program is incredibly lucrative for the partners, for the right partners. And, we've got some partners that have been with us for many, many years, which are still incredibly successful. You mentioned Provident, that's a classic example. Yeah. But there are plenty of others, but we're also looking to upscale our partners as well and bring in really high caliber organizations, with a more global reach potentially. And, as I said, I think we've got an incredibly compelling offer for anyone who is considering being a partner. But it also means over time, you need to let some of the ones that don't really fit the model anymore, slide by the wayside.
JR, you got something to say on that?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, partners are a valuable part of our business. And, but I want to just make sure, I'm clarifying something. We have a plethora of different types of partners. And the traditional Sugar partner type was a reseller, which was basically they repped the product, they sold the product, they deployed the product, they serviced the customer. And that's still a big portion of our business today. But, we're out actively having conversations with SIs, global SIs. We're looking at OEM partnerships as a way to drive the product forward in certain aspects. We're looking at ISV relationships where we have over 200 ISVs that we have partnerships with. But I think what you're talking about, Paul, is the reseller channel. We don't give a lot of rules around you can play in this segment or that segment. You can only be in this corner of the world from a territory perspective. We don't really have strict guidelines there. We work very hard to enable and educate and communicate and collaborate with our partners. And we want to give them as much potential for success as possible. And in the almost 2 years that I've been here, I think there's only been one transaction where we've actually bumped into a partner in a deal. But aside from that, it gives us expansion from a revenue perspective. It gives us growth at a lower cost to our business, and it allows our partners to build their businesses and be successful on the SugarCRM brand.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Speaking of the brand, gosh, that was a perfect segue. So you guys do have you've been around 2004. You built a brand. Initially, the brand was really tightly coupled and associated with open source. And I was just curious, are people still thinking about you with that as, oh, they're the open source guys? I mean, it's been a long time, but I'm just curious of that. And then the second part is, before we had you guys come on, we had talked about what SAP and what Salesforce is doing with some of these new ways of presenting thought leadership. And, from what Salesforce is doing, the Salesforce Plus, kind of a broadcast network. And, a company like HubSpot has bought their own podcast network. They bought their own kind of newsletter thing. Are you guys, what are your kind of thoughts and maybe the road you guys are going to go down when it comes to looking at some of these new ways to present and distribute content in order for you to either reinforce the brand that you have or still having to address, I thought these guys are really open source?
Well, I must admit, Brent, when I was first approached about the CEO role, that was my immediate thing. I competed with those guys like 10 years ago back in Australia. Were they open source? That was my response. And we do still get, there's still a prevailing view out there that, yeah, they're the open source guys. So, look, it was quite a successful period for Sugar. We grew very, very rapidly as open source. And it's actually still a very fertile base of commercial customers coming to us because they've used the open source product. It might be 10 years old now. They absolutely loved it. And the whole prospect of going and doing something else, they don't really want to, but they need a contemporary application. So they'll come and launch onto our normal commercial application. And so it's been very successful. I'm glad that Clint and the three founders decided to take that route initially. In terms of content, I think we announced a very important new hire that Paul was kind enough to send our way, and I think he's going to be very, very important in terms of getting the message out there. Obviously, we've got Clint Oram, co-founder and chief strategy and chief evangelist. We're going to be really, really sort of amping up our messaging to the market all around let the platform do the work and high definition customer experience. So both Volker and Clint will be, very, very vocal mouthpieces, as I know JR is as well. So,
yeah, and the other thing is, in my world, the selling world, mouth to mouth or relationships going back to our customers, and some of these CIOs have a network of friends, and just asking them to talk about what they're doing with Sugar, with their network, and that word of mouth, not mouth to mouth. I think
I was going to say, I was literally waiting. I was waiting for the right moment to bring that up.
I was wondering where you were going, JR.
Good thing you caught. I was going to say, you might want to reword that one. You might want to reword that one.
Yeah. So word of mouth, guys, it's like really important, right? Just somebody saying, hey, I was talking to my buddy. The sales rep loves it. My sales rep force doesn't use the application because it doesn't really work for our business. And that word of mouth for me on the street, like engaging with customers and prospects every day, is the loudest brand amplification I could absolutely ask for.
Yeah, you also got a good new CMO there too. I will tell you.
We love Claire.
How could you not? Nice. Known her since the days of Sword Caboodle, which goes back a long time.
Yep.
She was well recommended by our board member James Norwood. So I
have known James equally as long. Now he's in the HR space of all things.
He is wearing his pink suit at the big customer conference.
Yeah, no, James is another awesome human being.
Great guy.
Yeah.
All right, man. We're at the top of the hour. We've had Craig on the show before, but we haven't had the Snoop Dogg of CRM on before. So we're gonna have to ask him the traditional question that we ask everybody that comes on. So JR, do you have a favorite NFL team?
So as a Canadian, I watch CFL, the Canadian Football League.
Wow.
Hamilton Tiger Cats. Or
you
because of my proximity to Buffalo, I used to be part of the Bills. I used to go watch games there before I could actually cross the border easily, but it would be the Buffalo Bills, but in my case, we watch CFL.
See, so
either one is fine.
Yeah. But I actually the Hamilton Tiger Cats are like the New England Patriots of CFL.
Just be glad that they are not the New England Patriots. So
if you had said that, never back.
Yeah, we would have never seen you again. And I do like the Snoop Dogg moniker, but nothing to do with that.
Hamilton Tiger.
But no,
wow.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, guys. This has been great. I know it's been a busy week for you, and we appreciate you taking time to join us. So, on behalf of Craig Charlton and JR, the Snoop Dogg of CRM Rushforth, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players. And where's Minnie at? We can't end without.
You can show the new
Minnie.
picture. There she is.
There she is. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.